The morning sun broke over New Seoul, lighting up the mountains of scrap metal in Taeho's salvage yard. Taeho wiped sweat from his forehead as he sorted through the latest pile of junk. At 52, his hair had more gray than black, but his eyes were still sharp and his hands still strong. June, come help with this sorting. He called to his young helper. June, a skinny man of 23, jogged over from the office shed. Coming, boss. The yard sat on the edge of New Seoul, Earth's biggest trading post for humans and aliens alike. After first contact 30 years ago, Earth had become a small but growing stop in the galaxy's vast trade network. Taeho's business was simple: buy broken things, fix them, sell them for more. He was good at it. Very good. His yard was where things got a second chance. The sound of a heavy engine made them both look up. A large purple ship with Axiom Freight painted on its side hovered above the drop-off area. Its cargo doors opened, and something fell to the ground with a heavy thud that shook the earth. Another delivery, Jun said. They walked over as the Axiom ship flew away, leaving a cloud of dust. When the air cleared, Taeho saw what looked like an oval pod, about the size of a small car. It was a dull silver color, with strange marks all over it. Dust covered every inch. What is it? Asked Jun, walking around it. Taeho touched the surface. It felt warm, even though the morning was cool. Some kind of vehicle, I think. A small blue alien with 4 arms walked up to them. Taeho recognized Mok, a parts dealer who often visited the yard. Don't waste your time on that thing, Mok said, waving his upper arms. 3 trading posts rejected it before they dumped it here. It's Seraphim tech. Seraphim. Taeho had heard stories about them. An ancient race that disappeared thousands of years ago. Yes, their tech is useless now. Can't be powered by any modern fuel. The propulsion system is a mystery even to Galactic Engineering Guild. Mok made a clicking sound with his mouth. Worthless. 2 more aliens arrived. A tall, thin green one and a short, round orange one. They too looked at the pod and laughed. The human thinks he can fix Seraphim tech, the green one said. Humans. The orange one shook its head, always thinking they can solve problems beyond their level. Taeho said nothing as they walked away laughing. He kept examining the pod, brushing away layers of dust. Should we just scrap it for parts? Jun asked. Taeho's fingers found a small indent on the surface. It wasn't random damage. It was designed to fit a hand. A human-sized hand. No, he said quietly. Not yet. As the aliens left, Taeho noticed something they had missed. The markings weren't random. They formed patterns, and some seemed to glow faintly when his shadow passed over them. Boss, the Galactic Scrap Collector is offering 200 credits for the metal alone, Jun said, checking his tablet. But Taeho wasn't listening. He placed his hand in the indent. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a soft hum came from inside the pod, so quiet he almost missed it. The hum stopped after 3 seconds. Did you hear that? Taeho asked. Hear what? Jun looked confused. Taeho smiled. In 30 years of working with alien tech, he had learned one important thing. Nothing was ever truly broken, just misunderstood. Move this to the special projects shed, he told Jun, and find me the tools we used on that Proximan engine last month. But boss, everyone says it's worthless. Taeho looked at the pod again, at the way its surface seemed to catch the light in ways that didn't make sense. They're wrong, he said simply. This isn't garbage. This is treasure. As Jun went to get the hover lift, Taeho stayed with the pod, his mind racing with possibilities. While the aliens saw only a useless relic, Taeho saw a challenge, and he had never backed down from a challenge in his life. He didn't know it yet, but this strange, dusty pod was about to change everything. 3 days passed since the strange pod arrived at Taeho's salvage yard. Taeho had moved it to his special projects shed, a clean workspace where he kept his best tools. "You're wasting time," Jum said as he watched Taiho carefully clean the pod surface. "We have paying jobs to finish." "I finished the Proximan hover truck already," Taiho said, not looking up from his work, "and fixed those 3 air filters for Mrs. Kim." Jum sighed. "Fine. But what are you even looking for?" Taiho stepped back, wiping his hands on a rag. The pod looked different now, with most of the dust gone. Its surface shone like silver water. The strange markings were clearer, lines and circles that seemed to change slightly when viewed from different angles. "I'm not sure yet," Taiho admitted, "but look at this." He pointed to a section where the markings formed a tight spiral pattern. "These aren't just decoration. They're writing or maybe instructions." June looked doubtful. "Even if they are, no one can read Seraphim language. They disappeared 5,000 years ago." Taiho nodded. "That's why I called Hey Newell." As if on cue, the shed door opened. A woman in her 40s walked in, carrying a heavy bag. Her hair was tied back in a simple knot, and she wore glasses with thick frames. "This better be good, Taiho," she said. "I canceled a lecture for this." Newell taught at New Seoul University. She studied old alien languages and was one of the few humans who could read more than 20 alien writing systems. "It's Seraphim," Taiho said, pointing to the pod. Hey Newell's eyes widened. She put down her bag and moved to the pod like someone approaching a holy object. "Impossible," she whispered, but her hands were already tracing the markings. Most Seraphim artifacts are locked away in high-security museums. For an hour, Hey Newell took pictures and made notes. She compared the markings to images on her tablet. "These are definitely Seraphim symbols," she finally said. "But they're different, not quite like the museum samples." "Can you read them?" Taiho asked. "Not all, but some seem to be directional. This might be open or activate." She pointed to a spiral mark. Taiho looked where she pointed. He placed his hand on the spiral. Nothing happened. "Maybe it needs power," suggested June, finally interested. "No," said Hey Newell. "Seraphim tech doesn't use external power. Wait." She looked at her notes again. "Try pressing these symbols in order." She showed Taiho a sequence of 5 symbols. Carefully, he pressed each one. After the 5th, the pod hummed. The sound grew louder, and blue light began to shine from between the symbols. "It works," June shouted, stepping back. But after 30 seconds, the light faded. The humming stopped. "Power levels must be very low," Hey Newell said. "But this is amazing. The system still works after thousands of years." Taiho was quiet, thinking. The aliens said this vehicle can't use modern fuel. But what if it doesn't need fuel at all? Newell nodded slowly. The Seraphim were said to use energy from somewhere else, not normal space. Some theories suggest quantum entanglement. "In simple words, please," said June. "It might draw energy from another dimension," Taiho explained. "But the connection is weak now." Newell packed her things, eyes bright with excitement. "I need to research more. This could be the discovery of the century, Taiho." After she left, June looked at the pod with new respect. "So what now, boss?" Taiho ran his hand along the pod's surface, feeling its smooth coolness. "Now we figure out how to talk to it," he said, "because I think it's trying to talk to us." That night, after June went home, Taiho sat alone with the pod. In the quiet darkness, he watched as faint blue light pulsed beneath its surface, like a heartbeat. Something ancient was waking up, and it had been waiting for a very long time. Word spread fast. Within a week, everyone in New Seoul knew about the Seraphim pod at Taiho's salvage yard. Alien tourists and experts began showing up daily. "How much will you sell it for?" asked a blue alien with long arms. "It belongs in a museum," said another with scales instead of skin. Taiho shook his head at all offers. "It's not for sale." On the 10th day, A sleek black hover car pulled up to the yard. From it stepped a tall alien with silver skin and 4 eyes. He wore clothes that even Taeho could tell were very expensive. "That's Jai Seok," Jun whispered to Taeho, the richest Proximan collector in the sector. Jai Seok walked straight to Taeho and bowed slightly. "I am Jai Seok. I understand you have a Seraphim vehicle." Taeho nodded. "I do. May I see it?" Taeho led him to the special project shed. Inside, the pod looked even better than before. Taeho had cleaned every inch and fixed the outer shell where it was damaged. Jai Seok walked around it, all 4 eyes moving independently to examine different parts. "Interesting," he said. "I will give you 50,000 credits." Taeho blinked. That was more money than his yard made in a year. "No thank you," he said. "I'm going to fix it." Jai Seok made a strange sound, a Proximan laugh. "Fix it? Impossible. The greatest engineers in the galaxy have tried to repair Seraphim technology. None have succeeded." "I'll succeed," Taeho said quietly. The alien's silver face showed no emotion, but his top eyes narrowed. "You are confident for a human. Your species has only had space travel for 30 years. The Proximan Empire has had it for 10,000. Aliens in the room nodded in agreement. Humans were newcomers, still learning what other species had known for ages. And yet, Taeho said, this pod responds to human touch. To prove his point, he placed his hand on the spiral marking. The pod hummed softly, blue light glowing between the symbols. Jai Seok watched with all 4 eyes focused now. When the light faded, he was silent for a long moment. "A small reaction, nothing more," he finally said. "It cannot be fully repaired. The quantum resonance drive is surely damaged beyond repair." Taeho didn't understand all those words, but he understood a challenge. "I will repair it completely," he said. The room went quiet. Then someone laughed, and others joined in. "Impossible. The human has gone crazy. Even our best scientists can't do it." Jai Seok held up a hand, and the laughter stopped. He looked at Taeho with a new expression, curiosity mixed with doubt. "Very well," he said. "I propose a challenge. If you can make this vehicle fully operational within 3 lunar cycles, I will pay you 500,000 credits." Gasps filled the room. That was enough money to buy a small spaceship. And Jai Seok continued, "I will announce to the Galactic Council that humans have technological skill worthy of respect." Taeho nodded slowly. "And if I fail?" "You give me the pod for free, and publicly admit that humans should leave complex technology to more advanced species." The room was so quiet Taeho could hear the pod's faint hum. In his mind, he saw the spiral markings, the way they seemed to glow stronger when he touched them. He remembered the feeling he'd had since day one, that this pod and he were somehow meant to meet. "I accept," he said. Jai Seok's mouth formed what might have been a smile. 3 lunar cycles, 84 Earth days. The galaxy will be watching, human. After the aliens left, Jun stared at Taeho in shock. "Boss, what have you done? No one can fix Seraphim tech." Taeho placed his hand on the pod again, feeling its gentle warmth. "We can," he said simply. "We have to." Day 12. Taeho said into his recorder, "We've mapped the outer shell completely." Jun hung up another diagram on the shed wall. The walls were now covered with drawings, notes, and pictures of every part of the pod they had examined. "We still don't know how to open it properly," Jun said. He looked tired. They had been working day and night, taking turns sleeping on a small cot in the corner of the shed. Taeho nodded. They had discovered small panels that opened to reveal strange parts inside, but the main body of the pod remained sealed. "We need help," he admitted. "Someone who understands energy systems beyond what we know." "I might know someone," Haenul said, walking into the shed with fresh coffee. She had been visiting daily, helping with the Seraphim symbols. "Sun Mai, a physicist at the university. She studies quantum mechanics. Call her, Taiho said. That afternoon, Sunmai arrived. She was younger than Taiho expected. Maybe 30, with short hair and eyes that moved quickly, taking in everything. So this is the famous Seraphim pod, she said, walking around it. She carried a strange device that beeped as she moved it near the pod. Interesting. Very interesting. What's interesting? Asked June. It's emitting quantum particles I've never seen before. She looked at her device. This breaks at least 3 laws of physics that we teach students. Taiho smiled. Can you help us understand how it works? Sunmed put down her device and touched the pod. I'll try. But you should know the university rejected my last 3 papers. They said my theories on quantum energy were too radical and not aligned with established alien science. Perfect, Taiho said. We need radical thinking. For the next week, the team worked together. Sunmai brought equipment from her lab. Hainul translated more symbols. Taiho and Jum carefully explored each part they could access. On day 20, they had a breakthrough. Look at this pattern, Sunmai said, pointing to her screen. The energy doesn't flow like normal electricity. It jumps between points without passing through the space between. Quantum entanglement? Hainul asked. Something like that, but more advanced. Sunmai looked excited. I think the pod doesn't use fuel at all. It creates connections to energy sources that exist elsewhere. In another dimension, asked Jun. Maybe. Or maybe it draws energy from tiny spaces between atoms. Sunmai shrugged. What matters is, we don't need to add fuel. We need to repair the system that connects to the energy. Every day, aliens came to watch. Most laughed or shook their heads. The humans are still trying. What a waste of time. They should stick to fixing simple engines. Jai-seok visited once a week, watching their progress with his 4 unblinking eyes. 64 days remain, he reminded them on his latest visit. You have made little progress. Taiho wiped sweat from his forehead. We've mapped the entire system. We understand how the energy flows. Understanding is not repair, Jai-seok said. No human can rebuild a quantum resonance chamber. After he left, the team gathered around the pod. He's right about one thing, Sunmai said. The central chamber is damaged. See this crack? She pointed to a crystal-like structure inside one of the panels. This is where the quantum connection should form, but it's broken. Can we fix it? Taiho asked. Sunmai bit her lip. The material. I've never seen anything like it. It's not on our periodic table. The room went quiet. Without this part, the pod would never work again. There must be a way, Taiho said firmly. We've come too far to give up. That night, after everyone had gone home, Taiho sat alone with the pod. He placed his hand on it, feeling the now familiar warmth. We'll fix you, he promised quietly. Somehow, as if in response, the blue light pulsed once, stronger than before. Day 30 of the challenge arrived with a heavy rain. Water drummed on the shed roof as Taiho worked late into the night. The others had gone home, but he couldn't sleep. The problem of the broken crystal part kept him awake. There has to be a way, he muttered, carefully cleaning the area around the cracked crystal chamber. His eyes were heavy. The soft blue glow from the pod was the only light in the room. As he wiped the edge of the crystal, his hand slipped, pressing 3 symbols in a row by accident. The pod hummed louder than ever before. The blue light grew brighter, pulsing in a rhythm like a heartbeat. Taiho jumped back as a beam of light shot up from the center of the pod. The beam spread out, forming a shape. It looked like a person made of blue light, about half Taiho's height. Its features were simple: 2 eyes, a small mouth, no nose. Hello, said a soft voice. It sounded neither male nor female. I am N. Navigation Assistant, Seraphim Explorer Ship 7. Taiho stared, his mouth open. You can talk. Yes. My systems are at 12% power. Enough for basic communication. The light figure tilted its head. You are not Seraphim. No. I'm human. My name is Taiho. The light flickered. Human. I have no data on humans in my memory. What year is this? Taiho told it the year. Yun was quiet for a moment. I have been in low-power sleep mode for 5,342 standard years. The figure's eyes seemed to look around the shed. Where is my pilot? Taiho explained about finding the pod in the junkyard, how other aliens had rejected it as worthless. They said it couldn't be fixed. Taiho finished. But I think it can. Yun's light pulsed. Yes, repairs are possible, but difficult. My pilot had to abandon me during a temporal storm. The quantum resonance chamber was damaged. That's the crystal part. We don't know how to fix it. Many have tried to repair me, Yun said. Proximan engineers, action mechanics, Zellian scientists. All failed. Why? Taiho asked. They approached with incorrect intentions. Some wanted my technology to copy. Others wanted to prove their superiority. None showed. Yun paused, searching for a word. Respect. Respect. Yes, Seraphim technology is partly alive, partly machine. It responds to intention as much as action. When beings approached with greed or pride, I remain dormant. Taiho thought about this. But you woke up for me. Why? You spoke to me. You promised to fix me. Your intention is pure, curiosity and care, not ownership. Yun's light brightened. And your hands, they are compatible with my controls. The hand-sized indents, Taiho said, understanding. They were made for hands like mine. Yes, the Seraphim had similar hands. It is interesting. Taiho had many questions, but one was most important. Can you help us repair you? We have a challenge to meet. I can guide you, Yun said. But my power is limited. I can only remain active for short periods. That's enough, Taiho said. He felt new hope. We'll work together. The quantum resonance chamber is the key, Yun said. Without it, I cannot connect to my power source. And we don't have that material on Earth. Perhaps not. But my records show the Seraphim visited many worlds, including. Yun's light flickered, growing dimmer. Including this one. Long ago. Earth? The Seraphim came to Earth. Yes, they. But Yun's light was fading fast. Low power. Must return to sleep mode. Press the same symbols to wake me when you have more questions. Wait, Taiho called. Where on Earth? Where did they leave materials? But Yun was gone. The blue light faded to a soft glow, and the pod went quiet again. Taiho sat in the dim light, his mind racing. The Seraphim had visited Earth. Could their materials still be here somewhere? And why did Un respond to him when it ignored so many others? One thing was certain. The challenge had just changed completely. The Seraphim were on Earth. Jum's eyes were wide with disbelief. The morning after Taiho met Yun, he had called the whole team to the shed. They listened in amazement as he told them about the light figure and what it had said. Can you wake it again? Sunley asked, her fingers already typing notes on her tablet. I have so many questions about quantum physics. Taiho pressed the 3 symbols in sequence. Nothing happened. It said it needs time to recharge, he explained. But the important thing is, there might be Seraphim materials on Earth. Somewhere. Hanul was checking her database. There are legends about sky visitors from ancient times. Most scientists think they're just myths. They're not myths, Taiho said firmly. And we need to find where they landed. Earth is a big planet, Jun said. How will we know where to look? The shed door opened, and a stocky man with a beard walked in. He carried a box of rocks and minerals. Morning, Taiho, he said. Got those special parts you asked for last month. Do-hyun. Taiho stood up. Perfect timing. Do-hyun was a geologist who supplied Taiho with rare earth materials for his repair work. He knew Earth's minerals better than anyone. What's perfect? Du Hyun asked, seeing everyone's excited faces. Taiho explained about Hyun and the seraphim connection to Earth. Du Hyun listened, nodding slowly. Actually, he said when Taiho finished, this might make sense of something I found. He put down his box and pulled out his tablet. Last year, I was exploring caves along the coast. I found strange crystal formations underwater in a deep cave. They don't match any known Earth mineral. He showed them pictures of pale blue crystals growing from a cave wall. I took samples, but no one was interested. The university said they were unclassifiable and probably just contaminated quartz. Sunmi took the tablet, looking closely at the pictures. Where exactly was this? About 200 kilometers from here. A coastal cave system that's mostly underwater now, but would have been above water thousands of years ago. Taiho and Sunmi looked at each other. The same thought was in their eyes. Could those crystals be seraphim material? Taiho asked. Do Hyun shrugged. No idea, but they're unlike anything I've seen in 30 years of geology. Do you still have the samples? Sunmi asked. In my lab. I can bring them tomorrow. As Du Hyun left, Jae Seok arrived for his weekly visit. His 4 eyes took in the excited humans. You seem hopeful today, he said. We're making progress, Taiho said simply. Jae Seok walked around the pod. Many aliens are placing bets on your failure. The odds are not in your favor. Betting? Jun asked. Yes, your challenge has become quite famous. The Galactic News Network will cover the final day. Jae Seok's upper eyes blinked. 49 days remain. After he left, the team gathered around the pod. If those crystals are what we need, Taiho said, we still have to figure out how to use them and how to shape them. Sunmi added, the resonance chamber has a very complex structure. Hanul pointed to a set of symbols near the damaged chamber. Maybe instructions are here. If we can wake Hyun again, it might tell us. The next day, Du Hyun arrived with a small container. Inside were 3 pale blue crystal pieces, each about the size of a thumb. Sunmi used her equipment to scan them. Her eyes widened as she read the results. These crystals have quantum properties I've never seen before. They seem to exist partly in another dimension. She looked up at the team, her face full of wonder. I think we found it. Actual seraphim material, here on Earth. Taiho carefully picked up one of the crystals. It felt warm in his hand, like the pod did. Now we just need to learn how to use it, he said quietly. For the first time since the challenge began, they had real hope. Final day, Taiho said quietly. After 84 days of work, the challenge had reached its end. Outside the shed, hundreds of aliens and humans gathered. News drones floated in the air, broadcasting to the galaxy. Taiho could see Jae Seok standing with Galactic Council members, his 4 eyes watching the shed door. Inside, the team made final preparations. The new quantum resonance chamber sat ready on the workbench. It had taken them weeks to shape the seraphim crystals correctly, working day and night. It looks beautiful, said Sunmi, admiring the blue crystal structure. Its complex patterns seemed to shift slightly when viewed from different angles, like it existed partly in another dimension. Will it work? Jun asked, his voice tense. It has to, Taiho replied. He looked at each member of his team. We've done everything possible. Now we find out if it's enough. Hanul checked her translations one last time. According to Hyun's instructions, once the chamber is in place, the pod should begin self-repair of its other systems. If it has enough power, Du Hyun added. He had been a regular part of the team since bringing the crystals. The connection to its energy source has been broken for thousands of years. Taiho nodded. That's the biggest risk. But Hyun said the connection should restore itself if the chamber is intact. They heard a knock at the door. It was time. Let's do this, Taiho said. They opened the shed doors. The crowd fell silent as Taiho and his team walked out. Sun Mai carefully carrying the crystal chamber in a special container. Jai Seok stepped forward. The 84 days are complete. Are you ready to admit failure, human? No, Taiho said simply. We're ready to demonstrate success. Murmurs ran through the crowd. Most had expected Taiho to give up. Then proceed, said a Galactic Council member, her voice doubtful. The team set up a workspace outside so everyone could see. The pod was brought out on a hover platform. In the sunlight, its silver surface gleamed like water. Taiho addressed the crowd. Many of you believed this was impossible. You thought humans couldn't understand technology this advanced. Today, we prove otherwise. He turned to the pod and opened the access panel they had discovered weeks ago. A week after the pod came to life, Taiho's salvage yard was still full of visitors. News about the human who fixed Seraphim technology had spread across the galaxy. Scientists, engineers, and tourists came daily to see the miracle. In a small office away from the crowds, Taiho sat with Jai Seok. The Proximan placed a card on the table between them. 500,000 credits, as promised, Jai Seok said. His voice was formal, but no longer mocking. You have earned it. Taiho took the card. Thank you. The Galactic Council is impressed. Jai Seok continued. They have asked me to extend an invitation. They wish to study the pod and your repair methods. Study? Taiho asked. Or take? In the past, it would have been taken, Jai Seok admitted. But now, they wish to